It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bareboat Alaska. Up your DIY hunting game with one of their 37-foot adventure yachts. You and 5 of your friends can hunt, fish, set crab pots, shrimp pots, and take DIY to the next level. Bareboat Alaska is locally owned by a Ketchikan resident who lives here year-round. Call Larry at 907-617-4542 or go to bareboatalaska.com. That's B-A-R-E boatalaska.com and tell Larry you heard about it on this podcast. Melissa Castle, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks.
My mom is visiting, and she was asking whether or not you still play the piano, because you took piano lessons from her. Is that right?
I sure did.
So now that you're on the spot.
I know. I can't say that I still play, but I do know a couple by heart still. The Tarantella, Up on the Housetop. And yeah, there's a couple I can just sit down at the piano and still play, but I can't say that I still do.
My mom didn't give me piano lessons because she thought it'd be too stressful, because I would get I very little patience, and I'd get stressed out. And so the pastor at the Lutheran church gave me piano lessons, and that didn't work out very well either. But there's so many people. She gave so many piano lessons over the years. It was pretty funny. I was like, well, yeah, I'm sure of course that you took some piano lessons there.
Yeah, no, I remember my best friend Kara was like took lessons with your mom too, and Kara was a good student that practiced every week and like ended up going to college. And I think she gave piano lessons in college, just was a teacher, so she was very successful. But unfortunately, my musical talent didn't go very far.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. Like we have the piano here in Ketchikan. My wife and I decided to keep it, and I wish I had kept with it. I didn't really learn very much, and I couldn't really play very well. But it's kind of a cool thing to have, and just one of those random things that you can do at least a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I jumped over to the saxophone and played that through high school, and so some of that definitely translated over. I needed some of that basic knowledge I learned from your mom.
Yeah, it's nice to try things and find out that you either don't like them or do like them. And then now, as an adult, you're doing a similar thing, and you have found that you like being a pilot. So do you officially have your pilot's license now?
I'm officially done as of the end of January there, yeah.
That is crazy.
Finally.
At what point do you want to be a pilot? Or get your pilot's license? Because you're not trying to be Alaska Airlines or anything like that, right?
No, I'm not saying that I'm not done with just a private. I'm actually working on my instrument right now. But I would say probably it was at some point in my younger, maybe high school, college days. So it wasn't like as a child I wanted to be one, but my dad always talked about him having a plane and how he loved it, and I could see he just got so excited about it. And every time we'd go do a hunt, especially in the interior, you take a Super Cub in, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this looks like so much fun. And the idea of using the plane as an access tool to get into places in Alaska that typically you wouldn't be able to get to, that was a really big kind of push for me to do this. Was like I could go skiing and hiking and biking and hunting and do all these fun different things with a plane in some really cool places that I would never have seen.
Mm-hmm. There's a picture of me when I was really, really young, my first flight ever, and something about the seat belt was too tight or something like that. So I'm getting off the plane and I'm crying. So I think from an early age, I didn't really like that. It was a traumatic first moment. Yeah. And I didn't ever really thought about it, but I was kind of nervous flying around in the planes, and I didn't really like flying around in Southeast just because we were always going during the winter.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're terrible.
It's
they're awful down there.
Horrible.
And actually that was like, getting into it, it was like a fear I had to overcome. Like there were some scary flights going from Prince of Wales Islands to Ketchikan, and it was like, oh my God, are we gonna make it to the ground okay?
You just get bounced around so much, and
Yeah,
then you
poor
gotta,
visibility.
yeah, and then other people tell the stories about how something was worse on their trip, or how there was an updraft, or there was something. I don't know the terminology for it, but so many of those bad ones. And I remember we were flying from, I think it was from Cake to Angoon, and they split up my buddies Ryan and Brian onto different flights because there were two that were going, and then they're like, "Well, why?" And the pilot said, "Just because." And later I found out that they wanted to split up the brothers just in case the plane went down. A mother wouldn't lose both the brothers. It's just kind of a, oh,
Yeah,
wow. I mean, it
terrifying.
makes total sense. But that's,
Totally makes sense.
yeah. I think that's why
Well,
the people who come up to do hunts that are flying out in August and whatnot, they talk about the bush pilots and how great they are, and they are really great. And that's because they fly in horrible conditions during the winter with consequences. You're flying teams around for basketball, for cross country, for whatever. And so during the summer, it's got to be probably a lot easier.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, and even going back to like, coming where we're from, like one of the things that kind of scared me too is like, how many crashes do we have down in Southeast Alaska per summer? It's like, you know, it's common to have, a couple, and unfortunately that's something you have to consider going into this, I guess, hobby that I've gotten into. Is it's a risky thing, and there's a lot of components that go into it, not just weather either.
Yeah. We had a rash of them a couple of years ago, and obviously my students were pretty impacted by it. But there was still quite a few students who still wanted to be pilots. There was still something about it, and that just speaks to kind of the Southeast Alaska culture, particularly Ketchikan has got very strong roots in aviation, and a lot of kids understand it, but it's just one of those risks. If you were risk averse, then you wouldn't really do much of anything. Southeast Alaska and Alaska in general, whether you're commercial fishing on a boat or you're in aviation, there is some inherent risk. And I didn't mean things to get super super dark so
Oh,
quick
it's
there.
okay. Yeah, no,
But
no,
yeah,
it's all good.
that's part of it. So
Yeah.
what's been kind of the coolest part of it? People talk about the freedom. People talk about what is it about flying that really really gets you?
The freedom is kind of like one of the first things that came to my mind. Like you said, it's like, you know, building all these hours and you building all these skills and education, and then like when it all starts coming together and you just like start nailing your landings, and then one of the biggest kind of clicks for me when I was out, we like in the middle of my training, we went out to like Knik, which is like the glacier at the Knik Valley there, and went up and just like flying over the glacier, looking at these huge mountains and being like, oh my gosh, my sister did a sheep hunt over there. Like my friend did a goat hunt down here. Here's the river that like, people like a boat up, here's people like, ride their bike out and have a picnic. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it's so real that like these places now you have access to. So the freedom is definitely like one of the biggest things. And then also watching, getting better at something. Like I'm one of those people that really loves some instant gratification, like a lot of us. And so flying is not that. You really have to work at it, at least for me, from my experience. And so I have about a little over 100 hours now, and now I'm finally like getting some landings that are just like smooth and buttery, and it's like, oh my gosh, yes, this has taken so many landings. I've done over 500 landings now, and it's like, and still a lot of them are really crappy, but like there's the consistency and the growth has been really fun to kind of watch myself grow.
Yeah, I tell students so much is in that doing something that provides you an opportunity to grow and learn and get better at stuff is such a cool feeling. It doesn't matter, just something, whether it's you see the results from a hunt, or from working out, or from riding, or from whatever it is, just to be able to get better at something and feeling that level of accomplishment. I can't imagine a life in which you just clock into a job and you just do that, and it doesn't really matter what the results are or what you do. You just do this data entry type thing. And for some people, that's what they have to, they're based on their circumstances. That's kind of where their generational or their family is at this point. And, maybe they're making things better for the next generation. But having something that you can do and work on in addition to your work or make your work, it's so rewarding, and life just becomes a lot more kind of fun and entertaining. And you don't pay as much attention to the nonsense that's going on because you don't have as much time to just be distracted by it. You're doing things of purpose, and it's a lot more fun.
Oh, totally. One of the reasons I know that I am really in love with flying is because even when I'm out there by myself, I will hit a landing. I get the biggest smile, and I talk to myself. I sound crazy, but I talk to myself. I'm like, nice one. And I go around, and I just get so excited. And every time I get ready to go fly, especially in the winter up here, it's this whole thing with wing covers and turning the plane on, and it's just like a lot of prep work. But I constantly am thinking, I'm like, you always get so excited when you're done and when you're flying. So just go through this extra work. So it's super rewarding and super fun to have something that kind of gives you a big goal. This is gonna be a lifelong goal of constantly getting better at flying, because it's going to be something you have to keep up with.
Mm-hmm. How important is that pre-flight check? There's at some point you just can't get so good where you end up not doing certain things. Even with when you're trailering your boat, you just, okay, I got to make sure this, simple sort of things. You're taking your boat out of the water. You just have to go through the protocol. And sometimes when someone is there and they offer to help, it's like, hey man, I'm sorry, I can't have you help because I have to go through my checklist here because I can't shortchange it. I can't think that you're going to do this and not do it, and then it ends up not happening. So I just got to go through this. So can you walk through some of the procedures or the importance of the procedures when you're going through, so even as you get better, you still have to stay focused?
Yeah, most pilots know everything is run by a checklist. Everything's a checklist in aviation, to avoid small, simple mistakes. And I've already made a couple. The pre-flight, I have 4 different checklists before I even am moving the plane, basically. And it was my main pre-flight, there's before I start the engine, and then getting my my run up done, which is right before the takeoff. So everything from checking screws and bolts and my fabric and making sure my lights are working, my tires have air, making sure my tail wheel that is all hasn't been cracked from my last few landings if they were bad, or a rock didn't hit my propeller and gouge it super well, making my filter, all those things are in my checklist basically, and I'm checking those every single time. And like I said, I've already made some mistakes that just remind me so much how important that pre-flight is. And not only the pre-flight, but once I'm done with the plane as well. I've left the master switch on, which came next time to a dead battery. I've left my my fuel cap off, came back after 3 days of rain and saw my fuel cap was off. So just simple little things like that really remind you, and thankfully they're, things that are on the ground, but they add up to big things and also remind you how important all those checklists in the pre-flight is, because these are mistakes you can't just pull over on the side of the road. You know what I mean? It's
right.
These can, and I actually had a big breakdown in the middle of my training because I was maybe I'm not meant for this. I'm not meticulous enough. And I was no, you just have to try you have to try extra hard, because I said, sometimes we'll get in a rush. And so it's you can't be in a rush. You need to slow down, and you need to go through your checklist every single time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. There are people who count themselves out because they think that they're just not the type of person who's going to do that. So this is an overgeneralization, but I tell my students, I said, all of you were horrible at walking. None of you could walk. You were pathetic at walking when you were a little kid, but that sort of grit, you're you're going to figure this out. And your wobbly, noodly legs ended up figuring it out. You didn't just lay down there, cry, and think, well, I'm just not going to be the type of person who's going to walk. You figured it out. And at some point, we get in this, well, that's just not for me, or I can't do this. And sometimes you do figure out that, okay, well, this might not be what I want to go, road I want to go down. But persevering is such a huge thing. You find out a lot more about yourself, and you find that other people have persevered. It's not that it was easy for them and they just became something. It's they battled that and they came out the other side.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plans shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Yeah, no, totally. And it kind of like what you were just talking about there was definitely probably a comparison to like my husband and I were kind of learning at the same time. He took off a month of work and went out to Willow and learned, and I did it over 6 months, even though I really wanted it done in like a month. It wasn't possible for what I was doing. And so I was really emotionally and like wanted it so bad. And so I felt like I kept having these hurdles. It was like weather, mechanical, he had the plane in Willow. So there was like all these constant little things I had to jump over. And it just made me want it so much more. And it like, then that day I passed my check ride, it was just like, it was all just like, that was worth it. And I feel like the universe just made me work for it super hard. And it was really rewarding. It felt really good after all that effort I put into it. And I just got more experience with instructors as well. Like I got more experience out of it than probably, I mean, I think I got my license right at like 100 hours, which you can get it in 40. It took me more than double the amount of hours. So it's like, yeah, it cost me more money, but I also got a really good amount of experience with some instructors that I needed.
Yeah. What are you doing for a plane? Is there one that's kind of provided that you learn on? Is there a lease opportunity? A buddy of mine also from Prince of Wales, he bought one, but it's used for like someone else uses it for lessons. So the maintenance is, I don't know, there's some sort of deal in there, but how'd you do that?
So one of my biggest mentors is a good friend of mine and my boss actually. And he knew that I was super interested in all this. And, we were trying to figure out how to do it because that's one of the biggest things. How? Because it's very expensive and, there's a lot of logistics to it. You need weather and you need plane and you need instructor. So my boss's good buddy was selling his plane, and it's a Taylorcraft. It's a really kind of simple training plane. There's no flaps in it. It's got 100 horsepower. It's a great little plane. It's super light. It's a tailwheel. Anyway, he was selling it, and it kind of came up at the same time. So me and my husband and 2 friends all went partners in it, and we all wanted to learn in it. So we had a really expensive annual. So I don't know if the plane actually came out to be. It did come out to be a little bit, I'm sure, cheaper than renting. But it did come with a whole another set of responsibilities of owning a plane and maintenance. And even though that was frustrating at times, I think it paid off because it was, we got to learn a ton about our plane and stuff that, like, if I was at a flight school, if I was renting, it would just be like, oh, you need to fix this. Whereas like this stuff was like, oh, I left the master switch on. I killed the battery. Now I got to take the battery out, learn how to take the battery. I took it into the shop, all these parts to it. So we actually own the Taylorcraft right now still. And we probably will own it for a little while longer. It runs off car gas, which is nice too. It's much cheaper than avgas. And it burns about 5.5 gallons per hour, whereas like some of these Super Cubs or, up to the 180s are burning like 9 to 15 gallons an hour. So it's a really good plane to learn in for what we want to do long term, like in the bush. So yeah.
What's your elevation that you cruise at, and then what kind of speed are you getting?
Our speed isn't very fast. It's about 80 miles per hour when we average. In elevation, I've never taken it higher than 5,000 feet. I think the previous owner has taken it up to 7 or 8 to get looking up over some mountain stuff. But yeah, typically the stuff that we're doing is under 5,000.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. It seems like it would be safer and easier for your purposes, and yeah, a good starter plane. I just think starting right off at 15, 20,000 feet would be a little bit aggressive. You probably need a lot more horsepower than 100.
Oh yeah. And I haven't actually been up super high yet, like in even just like some general smaller aviation aircraft. But yeah, you start like, heights definitely start to become a thing, and it's just I think it's all has different components of it.
Have you done all the landings on? I'm assuming a good runway. When do you like graduate to like gravel or a more remote airstrip? When is that happening?
So yeah, that I've been practicing mostly around Merrill, and we have a place out or the strip out in Birchwood in the Chugiak area, and then I go over to Goose Bay, which is across the inlet here. I've done a couple landings at Knik on the gravel before things started getting icy, but now I kind of need to wait until things start melting off. So I'm ready to go to the gravel. Definitely, I'm probably gonna have to I'm gonna choose to take some lessons of somebody to maybe help me get more comfortable. Landing on a 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 foot paved runway is very different than a bumpy gravel strip on a stream or stuff like that. So I kind of have a couple instructors I'll probably go out with when the stuff melts off here in about June.
Yeah. The people who are able to scout out places to land that they haven't landed before, or even if they have landed before, to not be so complacent. We're like, well, I've landed here before. It's not going to be a problem. But, things can happen. You can, if it is like near a river or something like that, you can have, just conditions change a little bit. So.
Oh, totally. Like,
crazy.
I mean, yeah, even like they talk about like, dragging the strip or like coming down really low and you're like, you basically hover like, a couple feet above it. That way you're looking for rocks, sticks, anything that can kind of get in the way, because those things add up really quickly, especially when you're back there in like the bush. So I've been kind of trying to prep myself into like getting ready to graduate to the backcountry. I've been over at Goose Bay, which is across the inlet for us. They plow it, but like I was out there this weekend and it was kind of ruddy. So it was like actually like, oh, this is actually kind of like mimicking a little bit of you're not on the pavement anymore. It's bumpy and a little ruddy, and start practicing trying to land really specific on certain points on the runway. That way I'm practicing my short landings basically. So we get out into the bush that I'm ready for these, shorter strips.
Mm-hmm. So what's the hunt plan? When do you think you're going to be able to take the plane on your first hunt?
Well, I got the Knik goat tag, so I actually was recommended to put in that by my boss, and he said if you put in some work, you can land up there by this fall. So the plan is in September on a nice sunny weekend with my good friend Nani out of Juneau. Her and I are going to go out there, and they have a strip right by a river that's about, I think it's 1,500 feet, which is a good amount. So I'll spend the summer out there practicing, making sure I'm ready for it, and then hopefully go get a goat out there.
Man, that is awesome. It's great that you drew that tag too. So it's like this before you have too much time to think about or not draw something, you could use it. Like you have the chance to make this happen. That's awesome.
Exactly. And it's giving me a goal. I'm already like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'd like to have this many landings done, per month. That way it's like I'm really feel prepared and ready to put it out there.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
You have some pretty good luck drawing tags. How does that happen?
I don't know. It's like I think it's a family thing, honestly, and we can all kind of rotate. So yeah, I got that, and I also got an elk on a Fognac. So
Oh, geez. That's awesome.
yeah, I know. I'm gonna have a busy fall here.
I drew Edelin my third year back or second year back, and I didn't really know anything about anything because we didn't grow up hunting, did mostly fishing. It was basketball season and cross country season were in the fall, and they just kind of went back to back to back. And so it wasn't until later that they changed it, and there was that gap. So during hunting season, there wasn't basketball season. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just didn't really hunt growing up. So drawing that Edelin elk was just I had no idea what was going on. Got flown in.
Did you get one?
No, didn't even see one.
Oh,
It was hilarious.
dang
It was a beautiful camping trip. It was the beginning of October, and so we were expecting storms and just brutal conditions.
it. Yeah.
And it was pretty rugged territory, but the weather was great. Didn't see anything. Just saw one black bear, and that was it. And got flown home. So that all turned out good. But now I'm thinking, man, I want to draw something because I have more knowledge, more understanding of elk hunting and everything else. But now, of course, I'm not going to draw. So.
Now that you're like ready and you want them.
Yeah, put in for a couple
Yeah.
caribou tags and then a couple mountain goat tags, but there's still so many opportunities to do. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, and I feel like I kind of got lucky in a sense of like a little guidance on the like, my boss was like put in for this tag, like they give out a lot, and it's an easy spot for you. And then the same with the Fognac one. My dad was like, pick this one because seems like we've had good luck with that one, and he knew exactly where to go. As soon as I got the tag, my dad like made the phone call and
Yeah.
helped me out with like arranging the arrangements. So
That's the funny thing about hunts like a fognac is it's like everybody knows about a fognac. Anybody that's ever thinking about elk hunting, lower 48 included, they're like, ooh, a fognac. But there's that, well, it's a fognac. I mean, I'd like to go there and I'd like to get an elk, but man, that's kind of a scary whole thing. You got the weather, you got the bears, you got the everything else, and I think that's also a hunt that some people I'm not sure what the numbers would be, but the type of hunt that people might draw but can't make it happen. I think that probably happens with sheep a lot too. You put in for
yeah,
it because there's so low odds of or opportunity of drawing it, but then the year that you draw it, you can't go or you can't foot the bill. So that's I kind of feel bad for those people, and I kind of feel like maybe that tag should be recycled to someone else. But at the same time, it's you can keep an eye on the numbers a lot better. If someone draws can't go, well, that's one fewer animal or one less animal that's going to be taken.
yeah. No, that's a great point, and I'm hoping it all pans out. But we got a sheep hunt stacked, and then we had the goat, and then we had the elk, and I'm like, man, we're gonna be busy. But the elk happens to be in the first week of October, which my dad was like, you put in for the wrong one. I was like, oops, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. But he's like, he's like, the weather's not going to be as nice. But hopefully I've heard in October, maybe like the bears will be
Mm.
not as, I don't know. I'm sure they're still going to be around, but maybe they'll be a little quieter, I guess.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like with bears, with everything else, you just do what you're supposed to do. You take care of those sort of basic things when it comes to meat care and whatnot. Then you shouldn't have those sort of run-ins, and that's another thing to get. You don't go through your basic hunting checklist, and that's where some problems can arise.
Totally. Yeah, and it's funny because I mean, we grew up down there in Southeast where like, they're black bears and they like run away from us. And so I've been to Kodiak once and I remember like just the tone in Kodiak is different. Like, like you're hiking around all these corners in the brush and I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, there are big bears here and you got to be more careful. So it'll be a fun hunt, but it's definitely going to have a different little ring to it.
Yeah, when I was up on the Hall Road for the caribou hunt, and we both got one. We saw one grizzly bear while we were out, like during the day. But a couple guys drove by and said, "Hey, we saw 4 grizzlies on your carcass last night." Like,
Whoa.
oh man, that'd be crazy. But you just kind of wonder where they come from, But they know what's
Yeah.
going on and they're around, and it doesn't take much for them to kind of, a little bit of some trees on the edge of something, and that's just kind of where they're hanging. And man, that's just a whole different program. But man, they are impressive to see in real life.
Yeah, no, we were in Kodiak was it last year? I think it was last year. And we were looking for deer and we're like driving out to our spot and we see something like kind of bounce off the road. And I thought, oh, it's a deer, John. And I was like, well, just go look. And so he pulls off the road, and I like, it was pouring down rain too. I like jump out, and I'm kind of like just looking on the beach there, and I like kind of like I can't see it, that what it was, and so I like took a few steps into the trees, and was like, I can't see it, and looked in the beach, didn't see what it was. I'm like, okay, maybe I was just seeing something. It was raining, so it's hard to see. We get back in the truck. We drive like maybe 20 feet, and a mama bear and 3 cubs poke their head up out of the bushes, and like they're like 15, 20 feet away from us. And I was like, and John and I look at each other, and we're like, we're in Kodiak. We need like this isn't the South Central anymore. We're in Kodiak.
Man,
so that was like,
it
was
how
like,
it happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
just being like, oh yeah, what is it?
So you went down there just for a deer?
Yeah, so there was 3 of us. We were supposed to go, and we booked this Airbnb, and I've never been to Kodiak, so I was like, oh, it'd be so fun to just go for a weekend. And so I took a Friday off, and like a 4-day weekend, and we went to go, and looking at the weather, we like saw a huge storm coming, and we're like, and we'd already paid for the B&B, and I was like, I don't want to cancel I was like super excited to go, and so we had one person bail. So John and I just went, and we kind of just turned it into like, look, you just go, we'll give it a shot. And so we go, and we stayed on the road system, which is like, it's harder, kind of like in Prince of Wales. It's better to get off. And so anyway, we stayed on the road system, but we ended up doing like 3 or 4 hikes. We saw a bunch of does and a couple fawns, but no bucks. And it snowed, and of course was pouring down rain and windy, classic like southeast storm down there when we were there. But it was really fun to see somewhere new, and like deer hunting there, it's like you get over these trails and then you can just see forever. I was like, wow, this is just totally different than the deer hunting I'm used to.
Yeah, I love the Alpine and Southeast. And whenever I'm watching a video of someone that went to Kodiak, I'm looking at like how much they can glass. And
Yeah.
the stinking alders that are 7 feet tall, and there's a lot of shrubbery and whatnot. But man, you can get around. You can see some
forever.
stuff.
Yeah, like even just driving down the road, you can see like whole mountainsides. So it was a really cool experience, and I would love to go back. And we got a glimpse of Kodiak. I was like, when we had first flown in the day before the storm was hitting, that evening, it was just reminded me so much of Craig, of just like beautiful blue sky, the coast, the water, and it was just like, yep, this is why people live here.
Yeah, that's funny. It's interesting that you mentioned the Airbnb and how much, again, like the change from not only Southeast, but like back in the day before there was Airbnb, when we're staying at the floor in classrooms on the floors for basketball trips, or we're staying in the gym. But now teams are getting Airbnbs, or they're VRB. Was it Verbo? VRBO?
Yeah,
Whatever.
yep.
Like they're renting whole houses. It's crazy. I feel.
That is crazy.
Not that that there's probably too many Airbnbs in Angoon or Cake or Yakutat, but it's crazy that just how things have changed in those like down south type things, and how they make it really nice for people now in Alaska to be able to do that and travel, whether it be for locals going hunting or for athletic teams. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, in fact, the Airbnb in Kodiak, he was like had a freezer, and he had like, definitely you could tell he had like hunters stay there, because it was like set up for people who were harvesting.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah,
Where did you
it was awesome.
when you were up in Anchorage for state? Where did you guys stay? Like when you were like high school
Man.
basketball, you played
Yeah,
basketball
I'm
around
trying
here.
to think. They put us up in some hotels there in like Midtown. That's what they'd have us stay in. But I mean, when we stayed at the hotels, we thought we were like fancy, because like you said, when we were down there, it was like gym floors, classrooms, sometimes you get housed out at people's houses, depends.
Yeah, I know there's some people listening from the lower 48, and so whenever I talk to my buddies down there, they think high school travel is just taking your bus and then you go,
Yeah.
you come back that same day, but just the travel up there, getting housed out at people's homes, or you sleep on the gym floor, or going up to state or somewhere and staying in a hotel is just totally wild and totally different. But I don't know, I think you learn a lot of cool little things from that sort of thing. Some self-reliance and independence, and then spending just a lot of time with your teammates. You learn a lot about them more than you want, but also about how to get over certain things. Otherwise, it's going to wreck the dynamics of the team.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And even when I, just talking to patients and, people are like, oh, you're from Southeast. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I've been to, Sitka, and it's pretty cool to be like, I'm not only from Southeast, but I've been in almost every Southeast town there is, from basketball, volleyball, cross country, band, like all the things I did. So growing up down there was pretty special in that aspect.
Yeah, and there was a big NorCal versus SoCal rivalry when I lived there, and it was like they hated each other. It was just this rivalry from the north part of the state versus the south. It doesn't seem like there is that in Alaska, because we're all Alaskans, and people might say, well, Southeast Alaska doesn't get as cold, it doesn't get as dark, but it is miserable and it's different. But we all kind of accept each other as Alaskans, which is pretty cool. And you don't get that everywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're all in it together in the cold and the dark up here.
Yeah. So what else you got going on for spring? Do you do Spring Bear?
Well, we were kind of up in the air what we were doing this spring, and then I had a girlfriend of mine. She's like, I really want to shoot a black bear, and I was like, well, do you want to go to Craig? And she was like, yeah, let's do it, because she was gonna pay a lot of money for a guide to take her out up here, and I was like, let's go down to Craig. So my girlfriend and I are coming down in May to actually go bear hunting, so we're gonna go do that. And yeah, she was like, she's actually one of my first friends to come down to Craig, so it'll be fun. Craig's, everyone talks about like they want to go to Southeast, but it's just logistical and it's expensive, and it's not just like a weekend trip. I think we bought tickets yesterday, and it's like, oh, it's like by the time Alaska Airlines and Island Air, and it's like a $700 trip for 4 days. So it's like,
but it's still cheaper than a guide.
It's way cheaper. She's very excited too, and I love going with people with lots of energy. So she's super stoked to get her first Alaskan game animal. So yeah, we'll be down there in the spring.
Awesome. That's a nice thing about living in Ketchikan is, and Mom's made a couple comments about that. Getting from Ketchikan to Prince of Wales is a pain, and it takes a lot of time too. So you're either going Island Air, which is by far the best, most efficient. If you've done the ferry a couple times, then it definitely go Island Air. But if you haven't done the ferry, you have to do it at least once, one way, for the novelty of it. But it adds a whole bunch more complexity to everything. But then you get over there and you got the road system. So that's pretty cool. You're not locked in. But yeah, it's super nice to have the airport here in Ketchikan. You can be south pretty fast, or north.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the things probably that's kept Prince of Wales Island, so sacred, and I don't think as it hasn't maybe grown as much as everywhere else has, just because it's hard to get to, and everything's expensive. So, I mean, we could take the seaplanes from Juneau for $300 and something that may or may not make it to the island, but it's just like I said, it's one of those places that's really hard to get to, and it's complex, but it's so worth it just because everything it offers. So
yeah, that flight from Juneau to Prince of Wales, that's a pretty long one for a small plane. There's a lot of weather systems, a lot of mountain ranges. There's a lot of stuff in between that's turning around for weather seems like almost an obvious thing. So you might as well just do what you guys are doing and get that Ketchikan and fly over.
Yeah, I've taken that once, and I, just after the years of getting to and from the island, I have to say, like, going to Juneau and then just, the 1 hour plus flight and then getting off in Clock, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it feels like. That's crazy. Yeah. It's, like you said, it's like the weather down there. It's like a high risk. Like, might as well just play it safe and know for sure that you're going to get home.
Yeah. Speaking of expense on Prince of Wales, it is crazy what's like the housing prices and just how expensive it is. And there's a lot of locals who can't afford to kind of upgrade. There's some land available, but man, the days of when your folks bought some land and built out St. Nick, and a lot of other people did that, that was the way to go.
That was the thing to do. Yeah. Especially they're like outside of city limits and they're in their own little spot on the water there, like that. That looking back, like you said, that was definitely a good move.
Yeah, it's a different program now. There's a lot more people that buying properties in Nocatee, and Knockety was super, super sleepy. There was really nothing going on there, and Kaufman Cove really was nothing until, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago actually probably longer now, but when logging went out there and they had to kind of reinvent themselves. There was limited logging, but they had to reinvent themselves. And man, Kaufman Cove is a beautiful little community there, and prices are way expensive comparatively. But yeah, it's growth, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even in Anchorage up here, it's like just in the last couple of years, it's like kind of crazy what's happening. And it's like, how do these young people afford to do everything?
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
So, but,
well, what else you got? What else is happening?
Let's see. We got the spring bear hunt in July. A girlfriend and I are going to go spend a week and a half in the Brooks Range. We're going to basically do a pack rafting / hiking trip through the Brooks Range. We're going to float the Alatna River for about, I think, 50 miles. And then we're going to get out and go spend about 4 days in the Airgitch Peaks. I don't know if you've heard of those. They look amazing. I've heard amazing things about them. So we're really excited. I don't have a ton of pack rafting experience, so actually I need to do a couple trips on that. But I grew up doing some sea kayaking, and I'm sure it's not going to equate over super, equally, but I do have experience in the water and a little bit on the river. So yeah.
What kind of pack raft do you have?
We got the mule, the alpaca ones.
Those are so awesome.
Do you have one?
Yeah. My wife has, I have the mule, and she has, I think it's just slightly bigger maybe. Explorer or something like that, but they're so great because they're so light, and all the problems that you
7
had.
pounds.
Yeah, it's and you can inflate them so easily too, so you can pack them back in somewhere. It's like the true pack raft. It is really, really awesome.
We actually got them for my dad's bison hunt this last fall. I mean, I'm so glad that we didn't have to use them because my dad decided to shoot a ginormous bison, which I don't think would have fit. They hold, I think, 500 pounds. But my dad's tag, the bone had to be in. So just how big his was, I don't think we would have been safely been able to keep the meat dry and well taken care of. So glad we didn't have to use them because he shot his bison so close to this airstrip, which was nice for us. So I'm excited to use the pack raft because I haven't actually got to physically use it yet. We got it at the end of the season last year.
Awesome.
So and a great thing to use for the plane too. We're gonna. We're obviously not flying out for this trip, but future trips. Now we have a 7-pound pack raft, which in aviation, all those extra pounds count.
Right. Yeah. Was it your parents that did the Charlie River, or was that the Rhodeses?
It must have been the Rhodeses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They talked about. I think they went with a small group or with maybe one other couple, and I was talking with Doug about that, and it sounded like just an awesome trip. It was. They had rafts. They weren't really like the pack raft, the alpacas that are really nice, but just floating down to Charlie to the Yukon, and then floated down the Yukon for a little bit. So it was on the south side of the Brooks. But man, that's just sounded like an awesome thing to do.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Everyone that you talk to the Brooks or that has been to the Brooks Range is just like, they can just tell it's just like a super cool place to go. It's just kind of back to just being a hard and kind of complex place to get to. We had to make these arrangements back in December, and they only had 2 dates available left because people book so far in advance.
Oh, wow.
And they kind of have to keep really careful on their numbers. We're flying out of Bettles, which I think Bettles, correct, don't quote me on this, but I think like less than a population of like 50, I believe, like year round. So like just not a ton of resources up there, so you kind of like really have to plan ahead. So and it's expensive. Like the flight from Bettles into the Brooks Range is very expensive. I mean, it's gas way up there and just a long ways to get in. So, but like I said, everyone that you talk to just says it's just an amazing place. So I'm super excited about it.
How do you get to Bettles? Is that like Fairbanks first and then over? Or is
Yep.
it? Okay.
Yep. So it'll be Anchorage to Fairbanks, Fairbanks to Bettles, Bettles out to the Alatna River.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, and I'm actually going with my good friend and her husband, and they're both big mountain runners. So it's been great. I have to like work on staying in really good shape to keep up with them.
Yeah, that's good. My wife and I are bringing up our alpacas when we go up in June. We're gonna do some fly fishing on some of those creeks that are in the Mat-Su Valley, because we did the Kenai Peninsula for the honeymoon, and so we're kind of working our way north, and we're going to look at some of those streams and want to do some mouse fishing. So fish with a mouse on the surface. I've done a little bit of that, but the Prince of Wales rainbows aren't super big, and so if you're using a mouse, they might be even scared of it. So I think that's kind of a goal. We're going to look at some of those creeks that are up the highway there, Talkeetna area and Willow area. So short little floats here and there, but really
fun.
excited.
When's that going to be?
I think we get there the 8th and then come back the 18th. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'll have to connect you with one of my good friends. She's got a place up in Talkeetna and she fly fishes a ton. She
cool.
have some good recommendations for you up there.
Yeah, it's nice to get at least a little bit of intel so you kind of know where to start. If you just get the impression that you could go to any body of water and there's going to be 2-foot rainbows and there's going to be everything everywhere, but that doesn't really doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, no, it's like showing up to Prince Edward Island and just like going to Crab Creek. I don't know, something
exactly.
You got to kind of have somewhere to start.
Yeah, but.
So,
well, always great talking to you. We'll definitely be in touch, and maybe we can. I'd like to get some information about the fishing this June.
Yeah.
But, catch up with you and see how things are going with the flight and the spring bear hunt and everything like that.
Yeah, hopefully by this fall I'll have some good stories.
Awesome, looking forward to it.
All right.
Well, thanks again for being on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.